Did former players return to teams in NFL free agency? Have you ever wondered if players come back to the teams that drafted them or where they made their mark? In the world of National Football League free agency, this happens more often than you might think. Teams frequently look to bring back former players who know their system and culture. This strategy helps maintain team continuity and reduces the time needed for players to adjust. From a fantasy football perspective, these returns can significantly impact player value and roster decisions. For example, defensive end Calais Campbell made headlines when he returned to the Arizona Cardinals after spending years with other teams. Campbell was originally drafted by the Cardinals, and his return adds a veteran presence that can influence the team's defensive performance. This change can also affect fantasy football defensive scoring and the value of individual defensive players. Teams often re-sign key contributors to keep their core talent intact. The Seattle Seahawks recently re-signed linebacker Ernest Jones-Roman IV and defensive tackle Jarran Reed to multi-year contracts. Keeping these important defensive players on the roster helps stabilize the team's performance. Similarly, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers retained wide receiver Chris Godwin and linebacker Lavonte David, both of whom are significant contributors to their success. These re-signings are essential for both the team's strategy and for fantasy managers who need to project player performance. When former players return to their old teams, it can signal a stable role and opportunity for consistent production. For instance, a wide receiver or running back coming back to a familiar offense may have a clearer path to targets and touches, which boosts their fantasy outlook. However, if a player returns but the team's offensive scheme or quarterback situation has changed, their fantasy value might become less predictable. Additionally, teams sometimes bring back veterans on shorter contracts to fill specific needs or provide depth. This can impact fantasy depth charts. For example, if a veteran linebacker returns, it might reduce the number of snaps for younger players, affecting their fantasy appeal. Overall, former players returning to their teams during NFL free agency is a common trend that can influence fantasy football strategies. Fantasy managers should keep a close eye on these moves, as returning players often have defined roles and can provide more predictable fantasy outcomes compared to players joining new teams. Understanding these dynamics is essential for making informed decisions in the offseason, especially for keeper league choices and dynasty league valuations.